Okay.
The clock is wrong,
The
isn't
other
it?
one, yeah, the other one is wrong. Okay.
We're
Here we go.
we're on Riche time, so that's okay.
Test, test, test. Yep, we got it. There you go. Good morning, everybody. If you can please rise and sing, "We Shall Overcome."
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we like to say in short, to create community, find meaning, and
work for justice.
Yeah. And we like to run around lively as well, so perfectly fine. I want to welcome all of you to our sanctuary today, whether you're here in person or virtually via our live stream. It's always great to have all of you here. Whether you're regular attendees or maybe visitors joining us for the first time, you're equally as welcome. And we equally embrace all that you bring with you, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here today. So thanks to one and all for being here. I do have a few announcements I want to make this morning. One, you'll notice that our unity candle is lit at the front of our service, which is something we do when one of our members has passed away during the week, and I found out that Art Harlow passed away peacefully at home Thursday morning. A longtime beloved member of our congregation, a wonderful man, a generous man, a kind-hearted man who has been dealing with some serious health issues for a few years now, which he succumbed to finally on Thursday. So please keep Mary Giannini, his wife in particular, in your thoughts and their family at this time. And we will keep this candle lit during our service as a symbol of his life and his light in our community and in our world. Also want to let you know about An announcement from our Social Justice Coordinating Council regarding last month's decision, or I should say last month, the Spokane Alliance held a press conference at City Hall, which decided to do in support of a new community workforce agreement. That's a pact that ensures that public funds invested in Spokane projects will create quality jobs, support underrepresented communities, and invest in local workers. And you can help pass this measure into law when the City Council votes on it. At least they're scheduled to vote on it during their meeting on August 18th. Turnout is important. You know, I used to think that all of these decisions were already sort of made at city council meetings, right? And we'd go and we'd talk for hours, but the decision was already made up. But this current incarnation of the city council, I think, is very different. There's enough people on it to say, well, wait a minute, now let's reconsider the decision we made, and they will go back and reconsider a decision. So I think your presence really means more now than it ever has in our community. So turnout is, when we say turnout is important, it's important. Can be important. So over the next few weeks, your social justice team is going to be selling UUCS t-shirts between services or after service so that those who plan to attend can wear those. We can wear them as a sort of show of our presence. I don't know if Tom's holding one up. Tom, do you mind walking up front with it so that people don't have to strain their necks? Some of us can't do that anymore.
I bought one of these about 12 or 13 years ago, and everybody wearing them. You know, and I said, I don't think they sell them anymore. Here they are, folks.
They're still here. Okay, great.
Maybe the back part's got to be reworded.
Create community find meaning, work for justice. We'll go with it.
We'll go with that.
We'll go with it, yeah. Okay, thank you so much. So there you go. And you can also see a member of our Social Justice Coordinating Council, Karen Dorn-Steele, who was here at our first service, Barb Stubing. I don't know if Barb is here. Anybody else here if there's any questions about it? Okay, Nancy is here to answer questions. Peggy's over here. And there's also information on the social justice table in the back of the room. So thank you all for managing this for us. Okay, and I want to also let you know again that, well, first of all, Pam Lair, thank you for filling in as our pianist today.
Thank you.
Pam's unique talent will be demonstrated throughout our service. Our usual pianist extraordinaire, Jackie Sandberg, is away today, but a reminder that Jackie will be accompanying Madeline McNeil, who I think is leading the service next Sunday, right? Or speaking next Sunday. Yeah, okay. Who is another incredibly talented singer in our community. They will be accompanying her in a program of jazz and show tunes at Emma Rue's Cocktail Bar in downtown Spokane on Wednesday, July 30th, 7 to 9 p.m. July 30th, 7 to 9 p.m. So, put that on your calendar. Okay, the only other thing I want to say before we take a quick break to check in with one another, to greet one another, is I am going to be speaking on the importance of reading today. And one of the books I quote, I pulled off of my shelf. It's a cherished book. It's kind of messed up because Wiley got a hold of it when he was a puppy. So it's all chewed up, missing a back cover and all that. But anyway, in it was this piece of paper I must have put in as a bookmark years ago. And this is something I found on my car when we were still living in Louisville. That's how long ago it was. And it was in response to a bumper sticker I had on my car that said, "Born okay the first time." And it says, "No, you are not born okay the first time. Merry Christmas, God loves you. I challenge you to read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and especially John, and Acts and Romans, please." So it was appropriate at a book on reading to find a note requesting that I read something. I actually have read those. They haven't done any good. I still think I was born okay the first time. I was born okay the first time, you know. But anyway, it does remind us also that we should be judicious in what we read, right? Not just read anything. Okay, more on that later. All right, yeah, let's take a few seconds this morning to greet one another as is our usual custom. Yes, we should. All right, more opportunity to visit with one another during our social hour following the service. Someone asked where we can get that bumper sticker. I'm sure you can just do a Google search and it'll come up. It was popular back when I was a young man. But now we are going to move forward with our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening reflection this morning is from my ChatGPT conversation with Reverend John Dietrich, whom many of us recognize from Todd's teachings and sermons as the father of religious humanism. I asked Reverend Dietrich, across time and space, of course, what I should read and why. Here is his response. You should read what awakens your mind, enlarges your sympathies, and strengthens your sense of responsibility to the human family. Read not merely for information or escape, though those have their place, but for formation of your conscience, your character, your courage. Read the great thinkers, not to memorize their conclusions, but to wrestle with their questions. Read the stories of those unlike you, so that your moral imagination grows more spacious. Read history, so that you may not repeat its errors. Read science, so that your wonder may be grounded in reality. read poetry, so that your soul remains alive to beauty and meaning. Above all, read not just to retreat from the world, but to return to it, better prepared to serve. For humanism is not a spectator's philosophy, it is a life of action, and reading is one of its sacred tools.
Okay, please sing with us one more step.
One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
We'll now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds, and begin with a candle again for Mary Giannini and her family as they're grieving the loss of Art at this time. Also a candle, as we have been, on behalf of the people of Ukraine and Russia and that region of the world that are suffering from the war and violence there, the people of Israel, the Palestinian people, people of Iran and Syria caught up in that conflict. We kindle a candle for the many frightened immigrants in our country who are terrified about what's going on right now. And, of course, the people suffering from the deadly floods in Texas at this time. Let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. This is our third Sunday of the month, Sunday in which we take up a special collection on behalf of some cause or organization that supports our values, and this month's special collection is actually taken up on behalf of our own Little Free Pantry, which is right outside the front of our building here. It's modeled after the Little Free Libraries program. The pantry provides free food to anyone in need 24 hours a day, so long as it's filled, and it doesn't always stay filled. It's actually hard to keep it filled. There's a lot of need. It is a quiet yet powerful expression of our Unitarian values, offering compassion and dignity to our neighbors who are facing food security these days. One of the highlights each Sunday is hearing our children go out during the service, often laughing together, as they help restock that pantry each Sunday as a part of their own call to social justice and learning to do social justice. So if this ministry speaks to you, please use the special collection envelope in your order of service, or if you're online, you can go on our website and just indicate that this is what it is for. And no need to seal that envelope as usual. We'll reuse it if we can. So thank you so much in advance for your generosity. And we now give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Okay. A wise woman spoke these words many years ago. Down we forget, as up we grow. When children listen to what they need to know, speak on the side of love. Her voice, I do recall, was always sweet and low. Still sounds within my heart when rough winds blow.
Through trials and victory, there's one way to go, living on the side of love.
With hatred and ignorance and fear all around, darkness descends, knows no sacred ground.
Only one power can bring the morning round. Stand on the side of love.
Remember the brother you lost in a feud. Open your heart and let him through.
Hold the sister who challenges your soul, but heal on the side of love.
If Jesus and Moses, Muhammad and Buddha too were asked the question, what should we do?
Well, I think they'd say, sitting right here with you. They'd say, work on the side of love.
We gotta work on the side of love. Lay a fire deep inside your soul tonight. Dream of the world at peace in that candlelight.
And let your troubles go like so many birds in flight.
And rise
lay
on the side
of love.
We gotta work on
The side of love.
and rise on the side of love.
Thank you. So
Okay.
beautiful. So I'd like to invite the children up. If you'd like to come up and sit a little closer, if you're wanting to. Today, I want to tell you a story about someone very special to me. She has soft ears, beautiful deep brown eyes, a wagging tail that when she's really happy or in just a little bit of trouble, moves her whole backside, and a very, very big heart. Her name is Lola, and she's my dog. Now, Lola can do a lot of things. She can catch a tennis ball in midair. She can find the exact spot on the couch with the most sunshine. She can, and trust me, she does, let me know exactly when the mail is being delivered. And she knows how to sit, stay, and even roll over, especially if there's a treat involved. But there's one thing Lola really wishes she could do. Lola wishes she could read. How do I know this? Well, Lola watches me every day when I'm reading my book. Her ears perk up, her tail thumps once or twice, she stares at the pages, then at me, and then back at the pages. And if it's a story that makes me laugh or cry or gasp, she gets this look in her eyes like she's thinking, what's in there? What's making her feel all of that? I want to know it too. Sometimes I read out loud to her. She likes that. But I can tell she's still thinking, if only I could read for myself, I'd find out all the good stuff. I'd read about squirrels and sandwiches and swimming and stories about brave and naughty dogs just like me. But no matter how hard she tries, Lola can't read. Her paws are just not made for turning the pages, and her brain is made for other things, like sniffing everything in the world, figuring out how to get more treats than her brother Cyrus, and alerting the entire neighborhood that there's a UPS truck on the block. But this is where it gets interesting. Lola can't read, but you can, or you are learning to. And if someone can read, but doesn't, they're really no better off than Lola, who wants to read, but can't. There's this quote from a writer named Mark Twain, and he said, "The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read." Or as Lola might say, what good is it to have a superpower if you never use it? You have the power to read, and when you use it, not just for school, but for fun, for exploring, for dreaming, you're doing something magical. You're going places Lola can only dream about. And the best part? When you read, when you really use that superpower, you're not just helping yourself. Every book you read, every idea you explore, every new word or wonder you discover adds to the person you're becoming. And people who grow through reading have more kindness to give, more courage to share, and more ideas to build a better world. So today and every day, for all of us, and especially for Lola, use your superpower and spend some time with your nose in a book. Read about faraway places, or clever kids, or silly jokes, or talking animals who can read. Read something that makes you laugh, or cry, or feel brave. Because reading is more than just a skill. It's a key, and it unlocks whole worlds that are waiting just for you. And if you ever wonder whether it really matters, just picture Lola sitting beside you, tail wagging, eyes wide, thinking, if I could read, I'd never stop. Pam, are you going to help sing us out to Play Club?
Yeah.
Okay, let's sing our children out. I had to step away from the mic because I cannot sing a note. As we move into a time of meditation, you're invited to find a comfortable, receptive position. Close your eyes if you wish. Take a few deeper breaths and reflect on this quote from English writer Philip Pullman, best known for his fantasy trilogy, beginning with The Golden Compass. We don't need a list of rights and wrongs, tables of do's and don'ts. We need books, time, and silence. Thou shalt not is soon forgotten, but once upon a time lasts forever.
Good morning, everybody. I see so many wonderful faces here, and I'm so glad to be part of this church. But I'm going to take a song that comes from my life, going back quite a way. I was living in Connecticut, and along came an opportunity to ride with some church people down to Washington, D.C., and march with Martin Luther King. And that was the March on Washington, and I'm sure you've heard of it. We were on the bus at midnight in 1963, standing room only, rolling down to D.C. We shall overcome, we sang. This was the day we'd be a-marching with Martin Luther King. 200,000 souls were gathered on the Capitol ground. When Martin started speaking, there was no other sound, till Mahalia Jackson cried out, "Martin, tell him about your dream." And Martin said, "Let freedom ring." Freedom is the cry, understood by everyone. If you're blessed with freedom, your journey has begun. Every mighty river started at a spring, and Martin said, "Let freedom ring." Well, his sunlit path to justice has run into some rain. If you're brown in Arizona, our high court did proclaim the law can question who you are and if you shall remain. But Martin said, "Let freedom ring." He never said corruption pays, so hand me your gold. He never said children should bear the heavy load. He never said law should stop brown folks on the road. Martin said, let freedom ring. Martin said, let freedom ring. I walked down to the river, to the green waterside. The water is so turbulent, is peace on the other side. I'm grateful to the preacher and the wisdom he provides. It's like Martin said, let freedom. And Lincoln said, let freedom. The people say, let freedom. So let freedom ring.
Pam, again, thank you so much. I can never possibly define your talent because it's so widespread. You are a musician, a songwriter, a singer, a poet, an activist, a prophet, and so much more. So thank you so much. And a historian, by the way. So shifting gears just a little bit, while recently exploring the writings of my famous predecessor, John H. Dietrich, I came upon his relatively brief 1922 essay entitled What to Read and Why. And as a reminder, Dietrich was the minister of our church here in Spokane between 1911 and 1916, and later became known as the father of religious humanism. This little leaflet, he begins, is for the purpose of suggesting a short course of reading, which ought to be the foundation and framework of every intelligent person's thought. It's such a good idea that I immediately decided I would give my own sermon on the topic. In 1922, in addition to conversation, lectures, and the radio, most people received information by reading magazines, newspapers, and whatever books they might be fortunate enough to get their hands on. Reading was an especially popular pastime, but book availability was much more limited than it is today. Access to books was largely restricted to those living in or near major cities and to those with higher incomes, neither of which describes most people back then. In the U.S. at the time, there were only around 4,000 retailers that even sold books, around 500 of which were actual booksellers or bookstores. And there were far fewer public libraries. So given the difficulty of obtaining books, many people read whatever they could get their hands on. Still, given the investment of time and money, many would have also been eager to hear which books someone of Dietrich's stature would recommend if you could get your hands on them. Today we have the opposite problem. Books are abundant. There are almost 70,000 brick and mortar bookstores in the U.S. Alone, which doesn't include all of those sold online by businesses or digital books. We also have a lot more information mediums to take up our attention, right? With countless options available to us almost whenever or wherever we want, and often whether we want them or not. In addition to those ancient technologies that they used to call radio and television, our Alexas, our computers, our tablets, the mobile phones expose us to far more websites, blogs, podcasts, streaming platforms, YouTube videos, ebooks, online magazines, and did I mention an ever-mounting pile of emails than we can shake a proverbial stick at. So there's a lot to distract us. Today we almost need advice on what not to read or otherwise waste our precious time on. And I hope that by offering a few suggestions about reading can accomplish a little bit of both by enabling you to filter out some of the extraneous noise in our age of information overload. Like Dietrich, I'll focus on examples of the kinds of writings that I consider essential for becoming good thinkers and good persons. But first, I want to highlight a few of the introductory thoughts in Dietrich's little leaflet that are worth repeating. He begins by pointing out some of the reasons for reading. One must have a key to the drift and tendency of things before one can understand which way they are moving and what it's all about, he says. For this world is a world of growth. There is always a struggle going on between the lower and the higher, between the forces which try to arrest this growth and those which try to free it. As liberals, we ought to pursue knowledge that fosters both freedom and progress. And like professionals who continually must educate themselves about the changes and advancements in their fields, to be expert human beings, we should continuously strive to recognize and understand the changes in the world and do our best to adapt and to grow and to help others do so. And this means reading. Reading to keep up with new ideas, discoveries, science, technologies, current affairs, and so forth, and keeping an open mind about all of it. Great questions are always up for settlement, Dietrich says. Social, economic, political, moral, religious questions. And how shall the unthinking and the unread know in which way lies the hope of mankind? By reading. Another of my ideological mentors, whom it shall be no surprise to most of you who hear me speak often, is social psychologist Erich Fromm, whom I know so much about purely from reading. Fromm considers the urge to advance life, what he calls the biophilious orientation, our primary instinct. This is the primary instinct of all human beings, yet it can easily be substituted by the death or necrophilious orientation, the death instinct. But as Socrates said, or so I have read, few of us knowingly do evil. Even when our behavior is destructive and against the forces of life, we are convinced that we are doing good and that we are pro-life. Dietrich says thousands of people all the time and with the best possible intentions are conscientiously working against the best interest of humanity simply because they don't know any better. Which is why we should read. Thoughtful people ought to read just as a pilot studies his chart, Dietrich says, that they may know which way to steer. That's what reading is ultimately about, shaping our minds, not filling our minds with information, because we don't retain it, most of it, shaping our minds so that we can make informed decisions. Dietrich goes on to outline the areas that he considered crucial for us to understand, including the solar system, the earth and the beginnings of life, the origins of humanity, the development of society, the growth of morality, and the development of religion, and a few topics of general interest. So he kind of went like this, honing in. Each area is accompanied by a few book recommendations, many of which may still be worth reading anyway, but are also outdated, so I'm not going to mention any of those here. Instead, I'm going to begin with a major point about reading that I think is more crucial today than it was in 1922. I suggest that you not only read, but that you read books. There's a lot to read. Read books, be they physical, audible, or digital, especially nonfiction books. Magazines, journals, and newspapers can also be reliable sources of information, but books especially stand out as provably trustworthy sources of information against the impossible amount of misinformation and disinformation coming at us these days from so many other mediums. And this isn't to say that many books aren't also complete garbage, because they are. Some would say I've written a couple. But it's easy to pick up a book, quickly look at its author's reputation and credentials, the contents of its bibliography, how well it is footnoted, and then dip into it a little bit before making a final decision of whether to read it or not. Books are the calm in the storm of information coming at us from all directions. A reasonably trustworthy book, meaning one that is well argued and well substantiated, enables us, right, I'll get back into that. Remember that line because it's important, meaning that it is well argued and well substantiated. That's how we judge whether a book is worth trusting. And this enables us to feel more confident that what it says is worthy of our consideration. So read books. There are many great nonfiction books, for sure, some of which are among the best social commentaries ever written. John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath and George Orwell's 1984 come to mind. But a lot of nonfiction books are just for entertainment purposes. I like occasionally reading a Star Trek novel. Original, from the original cast, that's it. I'm a purist. But fiction is not rare, right? Sources of fiction are not rare. So much of what's being communicated today, in fact, is fiction, including information that many people are taking as truth. So if you prefer fictional escapes through reading rather than, say, watching Netflix or Fox News, please continue to do so. But keep in mind that fiction abounds. Truth, on the other hand, remains a rare commodity, like gold that takes some digging to uncover. Nonfiction books are written by authors writing for the purpose of directly conveying something that they believe is true, something they argue is true. So if your purpose is to better understand how to navigate through and how to promote life, how to affirm life, knowing which way to steer, as John Dietrich said, then read books, include books at least, that are nonfiction. Just watch out for the fool's gold. So I should also mention some of the shortcomings associated with reading. I once read a book about speed reading, for example, explaining that we retain very little of what we read, less than 5%, which is all I remember of that book. But reading isn't for the purpose of filling our heads with facts. It isn't about determining what we know, but about determining how we think. Reading slowly shapes our worldview so that we come to respond to life in a certain and hopefully intelligent way, or ways. Reading is a means of shaping our own neurology and developing instincts that will guide us toward our best decisions. So choose what you read with wisdom and intention. As is often said about the internet, garbage in, garbage out. If the decisions we make don't usually work for us, or if we are generally unhappy, it could have something to do with the information that we've shaped our minds with, our outlook, our instincts. But human neurology, miraculously, can always reconfigure itself at any age, so it's never too late to pick up a worthwhile book and start changing our minds and our lives. Here's 2 quick precautions about reading that you ought to also keep in your evolving mind. First, just because you read it in a book doesn't make it true. Second, just because you agree with a book doesn't make it true. Reading requires us to be good thinkers so that we can easily recognize if the information we're consuming is sound or not. The catch-22 is that becoming good thinkers requires us to read. So this leads to my first recommendation. You should read about thinking. You should read to become a sound thinker. It's my first recommendation because thinking well is fundamental to validating the worth of everything else you will read. Our society is extremely divided today because people haven't been taught to reason well. So we split into our ideological tribes that are fearful of and hostile toward anyone with different views or different ideas. But if we have learned to rely on reason for our security in an uncertain world, rather than dogmatically clinging to our particular ideas about the world, we're not afraid of new ideas. We can be exposed to bad ideas all day long, and there's nothing to be afraid of because we're sound thinkers. If they are true, they can only benefit us. If they are false, there's no reason to fear them because sound reason enables us to recognize them. Reason, as Lynn alluded to in her children's story about Lola, the wannabe reader, reason is a superpower that makes us fearless in a world of misinformation and disinformation. To learn to think well, then, I recommend books on basic logic, as well as books on psychology and neurology. Logic teaches us proper form and common fallacies. Logic, that is, teaches us not what, but how to think. Psychology and neurology, on the other hand, show us how we are prone to think, making us more conscious of the irrational traps that our untrained, unexamined, unconscious, inactive, and biased minds set for us. Most of us like to think that we're good thinkers. Everyone else doesn't have it, but we do, because we've thought thoughts and they make sense to us. But we're not. So I recommend that you pick up a basic introduction to logic, preferably a college textbook on the subject, and slowly work your way through its exercises. My favorite is Irvin M. Copey's Introduction to Logic. I think it's been reprinted multiple times since 1953. I have, issue number 12. There are also some simpler books you can get at a basic bookstore, like Jamie White's Crimes Against Logic. By the way, this sermon will, once I proof it, it'll go up on our church website, so if you want to come back and look at these recommendations, you can. but feel free to write them down. I won't think you're sleeping. So that's Crimes Against Logic, about logical fallacies. And another good one is, Do You Think What You Think You Think? By Julian Baggini and Jeremy Stangroom. So as far as books on psychology and neurology, I recommend, firstly, Robert Wright's excellent book, The Moral Animal. The Moral Animal, subtitled Why We Are the Way We Are, The New Science of Evolutionary Psychology. And then Jonah Learer's also excellent book, How We Decide. This is one I read back in 2011, right after I came. It was a gift from Gene Larson and Gordon Larson, and it's still one of my favorites. And Gene, I'm including it in my list of must-reads, so thank you for that one. I'd also like to throw in a book or two about emotional intelligence, especially Daniel Goleman's best seller on the subject, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. So emotions are what make life worth living, far more than our thoughts and ideas. It's how we live. It's how we experience, really. It's an emotional connection to our lived experience, if you pardon that phrase. But they can also destroy us if they are always in the driver's seat. You might also read, so becoming emotionally intelligent, right? Understanding how to be emotional in a productive way. So you might also read something about epistemology, which is the theory of knowledge, and metaphysics, which is the theory of reality. Whether it's a book or just an article, right? I'm just trying to build a base on these things, right? These are things you should know about and then know where to go back and refer to them if you need them, not something that needs to get stuck in your head. The point of all of these is to build a brain that is neurologically wired to overall understand that we have to question our beliefs and question the beliefs of others constantly, the things that are coming at us, which is precisely what makes us good thinkers. A brain that is curious, that loves wonder, and that is not afraid of doubt. That's the brain we're fashioning by this initial phase of reading, trying to become good thinkers, right? Now, Dietrich's approach, as I said, was to take the biggest subject, the origins of the universe, or he called it the solar system, which really wasn't that big when you think about it. But he had a cosmic consciousness. I won't go into it here, but he definitely was a believer, and he understood a lot more about the universe for a man of his time than most. And then work inward to the origins of the earth, then to the origins of life, and then human existence, and then human beliefs. Right? So that's the way he approached it. And I agree that some of these subjects are important to read about and learn about and interesting to read, but I believe that we must begin by learning to think well so that we aren't easily deceived by others, and more importantly, so that we don't deceive ourselves by simply believing things because that's what we want to believe, which is how most people believe. So next on my list, then, is psychology. Understanding the human mind, emotions, drives, and needs is far more important than knowing about cosmology or anything else about science, right? Because what does it matter how much information we have about the reality that we're in if we can't process it properly? And potential truth, right? Well-substantiated arguments, at least. Okay. So if you're in need of some inner work, then, right, discovering yourself, learning more about what makes you tick, so that you know your strengths and your weaknesses, particularly in the area of living and thinking, I recommend studying psychologist Carl Jung, who really gets into the personal unconscious, the collective unconscious, or just read some of the Jungian psychologists inspired by him, because he can be quite complicated in general. Having read most of Carl Jung's collected works, which is enough to fill a whole bookshelf, I recommend that you just pick up, if you're interested in an investment. This is probably a pretty expensive book these days, new, $70, $80, so it's not a cheap book. You might be able to get paperback for cheaper, but it's called Dream Analysis. It's an addendum, a volume that's an addendum to his collected works, for those familiar with those, based on a seminar that he gave for a couple of years between 1928 and 1930. And it contains much of his thoughts in just that one volume, right? So as somebody who's read Jung, if I want to do a sermon and reference Jung on something that I know he's talked about, I just pull this one up and go to the index. And I can find almost any subject he's ever talked about in this one volume. It's a thick volume, like most of his books are, but I recommend, if you don't have time or the wish to read his collected works, that you pick up his seminar on dream analysis. And I would also recommend the writings of the Jungian psychologist James Hillman, who unfortunately is no longer with us. I think he died a couple years ago. Especially his 1990 book called The Soul's Code. The Soul's Code. I won't go into it, but it has some really unique insights into what makes us tick, particularly around the nature-nurture controversy. He would come up on the side of nature, and I think it makes a lot of a great case for that. And then evolutionary psychology, again, sort of the new kid on the block of psychology, is another important new field worth exploring, right? It's based on asking the question, how does human behavior and human thinking benefit us in regards to survival, right, to progressing our species? It's a really interesting question, and again, I would just put out Robert Wright's The Moral Animal, which was a bestseller on the subject of evolutionary psychology, for that. So you can kill two birds with one book in that case. So hopefully finding yourself by reading psychology will help you accept yourself well enough to move on with life despite your hang-ups. Yeah, because that's what psychology really does. It doesn't fix us. It helps us accept ourselves as screwed up, because we're all screwed up, and that's okay. But it helps us to develop healthy habits for moving forward, despite being imperfect versions of whatever the perfect version is that doesn't exist to begin with. Okay, so once you realize you're okay and you can be productive, get out of yourself and get back into the world. And to do that, I recommend you start reading social psychology to better understand the unconscious forces shaping human society and human behavior as a whole. Right? It's really helpful to understand what's going on in our country today from a social psychological perspective. For this, as you may have guessed and have probably heard multiple times over the years, I recommend anything written by social psychologist Erich Fromm. But suggest, as I'm asked, what book would you suggest? You're always talking about Erich Fromm. Where should I start? Because he wrote a lot too. I would start with Escape from Freedom. It's his first book. The Sane Society. In fact, I think Escape from Freedom was his first book. Yeah. It was called Fear of Freedom originally. But that's the first one I would recommend. Gives you a really good base theory for understanding the world. The Sane Society and Man for Himself, which gets into his ethical theory, which is the humanistic ethic. And if you're open to something more scholastic and denser, but I think vitally important, particularly to understanding our circumstances today, I'd also recommend one of his later books from 1973, The Anatomy of Human Destructiveness. Reading it will be a good launching point into the subject of ethics, because that's where we're going to go next. You see, we're becoming good thinkers so that we can examine what it means to be a whole person, which then includes how to be a good person. Ethical next. So if Socrates was correct that most people want to be good people, want to consider ourselves good people, and hurt people today because it makes me feel good. I mean, most people want to do good. I believe that is so. So that's great, right? Because we're halfway there. If most of us want to be good, now all we have to do is know how to be good. But few of us have ever studied ethics or come to understand the difficulties in knowing the differences between always negative consequences associated with any moral choice, which is why I often say that every moral decision is a struggle. So to begin with, I recommend books about moral development. Not ethics, but moral development, which is a blend of a bit of the personal and the social. And there are many books that offer slightly different explanations of such development, but they are all rooted really in Lawrence Kohlberg's theories. So I'd recommend his book, The Philosophy of Moral Development, which outlines his original stages of moral development, or any reputable book about his theories. And I actually think even better is to read the anthology Moral Development, Moral Education, and Kohlberg that is edited by Brenda Muncie. And it's a collection of several articles written by several different psychologists about moral development from a Kohlbergian perspective. Also in the area of moral development, I recommend Carol Gilligan's book, In a Different Voice, Psychological Theory in Women's Development. I think it's got some crucial things to say. And The Evolving Self by Harvard psychologist Robert Keegan are also valuable reads on this subject. All of these books, among others, help us understand the psychology behind human ethics, that our best decisions ought to be based on universal principles that apply to most situations. Right? That's why I say study moral development rather than ethics itself. In fact, I'm not going to recommend that you pick up a book on ethics. Right? Ethics is it is an interesting subject, but when you take an ethics course, it doesn't teach you how to be ethical. It doesn't even tell you what the most ethical thing to do is. It just lays out all of these different potential ethical theories. So you still have to figure that out. So that's information that's out there. You can go find a Wikipedia article on that instantly, or if you forget, go back and look at it again. Right? I want you to develop an ethical core that is with you, that you don't have to think about when you're moving through the world, that you instinctively behave in the way that you feel is the right way to behave without having to think about it, because you've created a moral mind. So what moral development does is that's usually where it ends up. It looks at these different stages of development, but it always ends up with where the highest level is considered some sort of a devotion to some sort of overarching principles that guide us in every situation, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the outcome. Right? If it's the humanistic ethic, it's what is the best thing to do for humanity and for the promotion of life, individual growth and unfolding. So that helps us hone in on the decision without having to bring out all of this theory. I'm jumping ahead of myself here, so I'm catch up. Yeah, so studying moral development, again, in particular has helped me hone in my personal beliefs over time. Right? When I first started off without having studied ethics at all, I would be what you would call in the field an ontological or deontological ethicist, meaning it was rule-based, right? Authoritarian rule-based ethics. Some authority, whether it's the Bible or God or the parents or society, tells us what right and wrong is, and that's what you do, no questions asked. As I matured, I became teleological, where my ethics were ends-based, right? What is the outcome? Is there a moral outcome regardless of how we get there? And as I have matured even further, I now am more of a values-based ethicist who thinks that there are certain categorical imperatives, if you will, that should be our guide in every situation regardless of the outcome. These things that we hold true to. So it has led me to settle, as again, those who hear me speak frequently should understand, on the humanistic ethic, defined by Erich Fromm as the belief that the sole criterion of ethical value must be human welfare, and that the unfolding and growth of every person, every individual, should be the aim of all social and political activities. So at this point, having worked to become better thinkers, more aware of our own conscious biases and fallacies, how to understand the root causes of social dysfunction, and developed a working theory about the best approach to moral decision-making, we're finally in a position, as more well-rounded individuals, to understand our relationship with and therefore our responsibility to the world and others. Right? So rather than starting out here, we start in here, up here and in here, and move outward towards others. We've come to the point where we can now gaze at those stars that Dietrich mentioned and wonder why we are here, what we are here for. So I do recommend studying not just the solar system, but cosmology, the origins of the universe. And for this I have two recommendations. The Universe Story, that's the main title, so just remember that when I write it down. The Universe Story, subtitled From the Primordial Flaring Forth to the Ecozoic Era, a celebration of the unfolding of the cosmos. And that's written by cosmologist Brian Swim and eco-theologian Thomas Berry. And then to bring that knowledge down to earth, I suggest you read another excellent book, Microcosmos. Microcosmos, the 4 billion years of evolution from our microbial ancestors, by Lynn Margulis and Dorian Sagan, the son of Carl Sagan. And if you're interested in more on these subjects, just consult their bibliographies of these two books. So I also recommend reading science in general, since I believe it offers the most truthful view of our reality and helps us remain honest with ourselves and about the realities we face. And as long as it's quality science, which your reasoning powers that you've developed from reading should let you know, then read whatever science catches your attention, because it's all good and there's so much of it. So my final category for becoming a well-rounded person is history. Now it's time to go to sleep. A lot of people think when it comes to history. But I think it's important not for the purpose of understanding the past, but for better understanding ourselves by knowing how we got where we are so that we can make sound decisions about where we're going in the future. History is always about the future. And if you think about it, most of what I've already recommended is about history. Psychology is but the anthropology that digs into the minds of the past, be it the individual or the social mind. Ethics is largely about learning from the mistakes of the past. Moral development is about building better ways of being upon the foundations of the past. Science examines natural history to discover new theories, like evolution, for example. But no matter the field, it is always about what we can do in the present to make a better tomorrow for ourselves and for others. By learning more about where we've been and where we've come from, we better understand where we ought to go from here. So I can't single out any history book that I consider a must-read, because as I've said, almost all of it is really history, although I will recommend Yuval Harari's book, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. I think it's excellent, accessible. But the point here is just to read what you must to understand the past so that you can better move forward with life. Because that's the value, that's what we're getting at here, right? If our purpose is to promote life, how do we do that? I know this is a long one, guys, so stay with me. I'm almost done here. Okay? By the way, this is the first time I've ever written a sermon based on something Dietrich has done that was longer than his. So I'm going to close with just a few additional books that I've personally found most transformative and important to me. Okay, they're books that have changed me, transformed me from a pessimist into an optimist for what I consider sound reasons. Right? I don't believe the optimists are the ones who are naive. The pessimists are naive. And they may not have the same impact on you, so that's why I'm not calling them must-reads for everyone. Still, I feel a few personal recommendations are a good way to start to wrap it up. So, books that prove that the world is getting better in almost all respects, despite the dismal way that it's portrayed in almost all other mediums. And these books include The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley, Factfulness by statistician Hans Rosling, The Better Angels of Our Nature by Steven Pinker, whose most recent book, Enlightenment Now, is also recommended. And then the three books that I love most of all. Really, the books that when I look on my shelf, I have this feeling in my heart, this affection for them, are ones that some would say are crazy, but nevertheless. They include Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Near, and his newest sequel to that, The Singularity is Nearer, and the book Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler. These books have given me reason to have hope. And hope without reason is just wishful thinking. Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, the way of harmony, once said, "Life is growth. If we stop growing technically and spiritually, we are as good as dead." Erich Fromm said similarly, "We grow either stronger or weaker, wiser or more foolish, more courageous or more cowardly. Every second is a moment of decision, for the better or for the worse. Every second is a moment of decision for the better or the worse. The moment we stand still, we begin to decay." Reading is about moving and growing, which are the very definitions of life. So read. Read books. Read nonfiction books about things you never knew about, nor thought you'd ever want to know about, written by people you don't know, nor ever thought you'd want to know. Read books that agree with you, but also some authors you disagree with. Reading things you dislike or disagree with won't kill you. but not reading will. Effectively. So read. For as one of my graduate professors, Professor Joseph Martos, used to say, diplomas cost money, but education is free. Thank you. And again, longer than usual, so we're going to go right into our benediction and then our closing song.
Want to get ready for shalom, guys? As we close, I invite you to be a reader and to nurture and support the reading of others. Our benediction is the last stanza of The Reading Mother, a poem, one of my favorite poems, by Strickland Gilliland. You may have tangible wealth untold, caskets of jewels and coffers of gold. Richer than I, you can never be. I had a mother who read to me. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.